You have the right to say certain things. So you don't have the right to threaten someone, right? You can say what you want. I have the right to say, I'm going to punch you in your face. I can say that. That is my right as an American.
So why would you get charged for doing that? That's a charge.
Because the consequences are, you have the right to say whatever you want, but the consequences you can't get away from. I would say you have the ability to say whatever you want.
That's the right.
You have the right.
No, you can't be
a right. Means that is something that is protected, right? So you can't be protective while you're threatening someone.
Good evening. This is Dr. Curry.
This is Coby Owens.
Shané Darby.
And welcome to The Source. We got the whole team back here, and I want to say that last couple of weeks we've been having some interesting talking points to share with those of you who watch us week after week. This week we started with a sad occasion. We know Delaware State is the only HBCU in the state of Delaware, but you know things are happening, and we want to always bring the news as it is, as opposed to trying to sway one way or another. I don't know if you all heard about Sunday morning around 1:40 in the morning. A shooting started ringing out, and a young lady who was from here in Wilmington, she was murdered. You have any information on that?
Yeah. So. She was attending a party that was happening on campus at one of the residence halls. There was a shooting that broke out. She was innocent. She was just a bystander who went the wrong direction as they were shooting, and she was shot in the chest. The police arrived. They tried to keep her alive. They transported her to the hospital, and that's where she passed away. But just some information about her. She graduated from Concord High School in North Wilmington with a 3.0 GPA, and was currently at Del Tech Community College and had planned on transferring to DSU to pursue a degree in computer science to help her achieve her ultimate goal, which is working in cybersecurity. So she had a bright future ahead of her. Again, I say that because the first statement, I understand schools want to protect their schools, liability, all that other stuff, yada, yada. The first statement the school put out made it seem like she was just on campus randomly, had nothing to do. They was trying to distance themselves from this young girl. And whether or not she was enrolled at the school or not, it's an open campus, it's not a closed campus. She was invited there by someone else, right, who is a member of the DSU community. And that first statement that they put out was insensitive, and it made me feel as though they were trying to change the narrative. The narrative should have been the honest truth. And again, I love DSU, don't get me wrong, but there was multiple shots fired. She was not targeted. It was not just one shot, one kill, right? It was multiple shots that rang out. Multiple students were in harm's way. But that is not the narrative they chose to put out to the public. You have to be honest with the families, with the students, and with the general public as well, too. I understand it makes your school look bad, but you have to take these things head on and work for better solutions.
Yeah, because when I read the article, and I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Were you going to say something?
No, you go.
But when I read the article, it did share that she was not a student at the university, which led me to believe that something could have followed her. But in actuality, there was a lot of shots fired. Franklin Hall is one of the residence halls over there, and I know that weekend there was a lot of things going on. It was like their spring fling, end of the year thing going on. We know the Qs went over, the AKs went over, but it was in a residence hall, so it wasn't even at the party.
Right.
So something happened where they have not yet found who did it, but I feel bad for the family. Let's start there. I feel really bad for the family who, you trust that your child is going to go into a university setting to just, have a little fun, have a little fun, be young, and right before, school ends and this type of tragedy happens. And it's just a sad day. And I'm gonna kind of like be careful, but that's just a sad day.
No, I agree. I think it's sad. Just trying to figure out, hopefully more information comes out about like what happened, who did it, what other precautions need to be put in, security precautions, so this doesn't happen again. But everything you can't control either, so things happen. But
right. This whole thing about the open campus, I'm not too sure if Del State is an open campus.
It is.
Oh, it is?
Yep.
Oh, wow.
Yep.
Okay.
I went to Temple
campuses before.
I was about to say, I went to Temple University, but I was a commuter. So I didn't have a lot of, interaction on campus. So all my friends went to DSU. So I was at DSU.
What year was that about?
That was 2007 to 11.
Okay, because I was there from 2000 to 2005, and it was a closed campus. I was direct.
And I used to go there all the time.
Okay,
I was in multiple.
I understand. That's where that front gate came from, and you had to even check in with your ID for my era.
You have the front gate there, but there's still multiple entry points there. You don't have to scan on, you don't have to sign on to campus there.
Right.
At some colleges, even to go in dorm rooms, right? You have to have someone come give you an ID and sign you in and stuff like that.
And that's what I'm really saying. When I worked there in 2000, up until 2005, you had to sign in at the front gate. There's multiple entrances, but you couldn't go in those. You only can come through the front gate. And then when you go into any of the residence hall, there was a check-in system.
Gotcha.
So that we know who's in the building. We know who's there, who's visiting. If you don't have a person you are visiting, then you cannot come in.
Right.
It's just that simple. But you're saying now it's an open campus. I feel bad about that.
I was at the parties. I was at the parties.
Oh, wow.
Yes, all my friends were there.
You better be glad I was gone, because I probably would not I would not have allowed you to graduate from Temple University. But while we make light of that piece, the reality of it is the reality of it is I'm sure they're going to look at their policies, and they're going to have to say some change and adjustments are going to have to come. And as you shared, Shané, I hope that we get more information on this. What the person who perpetrated this needs to be identified. The school need to be able to say, we're going to change our policies to reflect more safety, more security, because you got children from all over the country who's going to colleges all over the place. And the number one thing that parents are asking, is it safe? I'm a parent whose child in another couple of years will be going to college, and that's going to be my number one question.
Well, again, the question, is it safe? Absolutely not. Not a single college is safe in America right now, not even high schools, elementary schools, preschools, whatsoever. There is a fascination with guns in this country. And even with like my generation on, right? It's no more just throwing hands, right? It's no more just fighting. Winner wins, loser lose, right? No, everyone thinks that a piece of metal and lead is the way you solve your issues now. It's cowardly, and it's sad, right? But then also, it's relatively very easy to get your hands on a gun.
Oh, yes.
Right?
Oh, yes.
So again, this leads to even more issues and leads to incidents like this.
Yeah. Well, what we're praying is that safer. I can't use the word safe. That we need safer environments so that our young people can go to school, they can learn, they can matriculate, and have fun. Because I'm gonna be honest with you. Now, we were joking earlier, but when I was an undergraduate, I had fun. I mean, we didn't have to. The worst thing happened is a fight broke out in the party.
And you visited other schools.
Oh yes,
right?
Oh yes.
Right. And I want everyone else to remember that when you were in college, did you visit other schools too? So don't demonize someone for not being a member of that school, but she was invited, right?
Okay.
So when you are invited into someone's house, you become a guest of the house, which means you're a part of that family. Yeah. So that's all I'm trying to get at.
Okay, I hear you. But yes, I went to a lot of schools and I had a lot of fun. I even went to Temple a couple of times, and they had dry parties though. They was not dry as in alcohol, but dry they didn't know how to have a party. That's why she always went to Del State. Another thing I want to talk about today, and before I go, let me just say we are certainly praying for the family, and we are going to hold them close. And there's a GoFundMe page for this young lady and her family, and I pray that the Lord will continue to comfort them during this time of bereavement. We now move to the question of the day, and this is going on. The Republicans, Democrats, people are not getting this right. So I thought this would be a great opportunity. We have no labels here. We have Democrat here, and you have me, who's a independent, pretty much, because I'm a Democrat and I'm a Republican. Because as I look at my philosophy, there are things that Republicans believe in. I am very much for. There are things that the Democrats believe, and I'm very much for. So I'm more independent. She's no labels. So, and he's Democrat. You still Democrat this week?
I'm still Democrat.
Okay, because she's not Democrat no more.
I'm not.
Here it is. What does it mean when they talk about the First Amendment, free speech? With all this is going on right now, and it's all coming out of what's going on in Gaza, what is free speech? How do y'all define it? I want to hear from both.
Yeah, no, I think free speech is being able to believe anything you want to believe, right? I don't have to agree with you.
Speech is not a belief. Speech is a verbal.
Yeah, so what you say is what you believe,
okay,
right? So it's
right.
you expressing yourself and your belief and your morals and your values, right? I might not agree, but that's their freedom to do as they want to say or do or say, whatever it may be, whatever that, because speech or expression, because the First Amendment isn't just what you say, it's also what you do. Okay. It's like expression, right? I have the right to express myself in a way that I want based on my morals, values, and beliefs, right? Mm-hmm. I'm okay with people having free speech. What the issue is not the right, it's that there's consequences to certain things you say. You could say whatever you want. Mm-hmm. You have the freedom, but there's consequences to what you say. Right, so that's really like where I stand on.
That sounds like a
consequences for everyone or just for certain people?
Right, that's what I was.
Yeah, just for certain people, but that doesn't take away their right to free speech. But there are consequences and there are repercussions for certain things people are saying, where they're supposed to be. If there isn't, it still doesn't take away their right.
How do you call it free speech when there's consequences? See, that's what I'm trying to get you to understand. I was taught, okay, and I'm not saying I was taught was right, that your rights end when they begin to infringe on the rights of others. That's what I was taught as a young kid growing up by my mom, going off to college. You have a right to think what you want to think, but you don't have a right to infringe on somebody else's rights.
But that's subjective.
Absolutely.
Like you would believe that something I say is infringing on your rights, but I don't believe that. So it's subjective. So the very basic right of freedom of speech is I can say and express myself in the way that I want. But that does not relieve you of whatever consequences or repercussions that may or may not exist.
So how do we teach that to kids then? How do we teach free speech to children? Because if you're saying this is not really free speech, because free means no cost, no penalty, no there is no ramification. That's what free deals with. It's release.
I don't think in my head that's not what free means. Okay. Free means I have the right to say it. Okay. It doesn't mean you have the right to not be held to those consequences.
You have the right to say certain things. So you don't have the right to threaten someone, right? You can say what you want. I have the right to say, I'm going to punch you in your face. I can say that. That is my right as an American.
So why would you get charged for doing that? That's a charge.
Because the consequences are, you have the right to say whatever you want, but the consequences
I would say you have the ability to say whatever you want.
That's the right.
You have the right.
No, you can't be
a right means that is something that is protected, right? So you can't be protective while you're threatening someone, right? Especially, government officials and stuff like that. Now, what I am seeing, right, is the fact that I'm going to compare two things. You had the Charlottesville Unite something rally, right? And then you have Black Lives Matter. They were there to uphold a Confederacy that was based and grounded in slavery.
And they have the right to.
Right, they have the right to. Now, Black Lives Matter said, hey, stop killing us, cops. Which they have the right to say that, right?
Yep.
They're not saying, oh, we're going to go back after the cops. They're saying, stop killing us. Black lives should matter just as much as anyone else. But Black Lives Matter was demonetized. It was put on, if you were a part of the movement under the Trump administration, you became a black identified extremist. But those members of that Charlottesville march who were saying the same thing, that their lives matter and their Confederacy matters, which is a defunct government that tried to overthrow the United States of America, terrorists, they were not put on lists like that. They were not surveilled by the police, right? They didn't have FBI, who has a long history of surveilling black activists. That didn't happen to them. So there's a clear divide of a broken system that our rights aren't being protected. Now you fast forward to what's happening today.
Before we get to today, I want to make sure I'm clear, and then what I'm believing and feeling. I still don't believe that we have a right to say whatever we have the ability to say. I don't believe that, because when you call a person the N-word, when a white
they have
person,
a right to you say this.
It's set. No, they don't have a right to say it. They have ability to say it.
But yeah, that's what I'm saying. Afterwards, you're going to catch the repercussions of it.
But if it is a right, there is no ramification.
That's not how.
I have a right to breathe.
You do.
You will not charge me to breathe.
They will, though.
How?
They
got air in cans right at Walmart right now.
I don't think the issue is the right. I think the issue is that you have the right, but then you have a system that has racism, sexism, oppression, imperialism, like all of these things that then make it complicated to everyone's right being protected, right? And that also makes it complicated in that people have different views. It's very subjective, because who you would call a terrorist, I wouldn't call a terrorist. What you would call a terrorist, I wouldn't, right? It's subjective. And I think that I have no issue with people celebrating the Confederacy flag. I have none. Do what you do. If you want to use the N-word, go ahead, do it. That's your right. Do it. But there's consequences, right? In different culturally, there may or may not be criminal, like different things. So I don't think the problem, is the system, not the right. I don't think the right is the issue. I think it's the system that's the issue, and how they deal with different people.
I don't know how I train my child not to say certain things, even though she may be feeling certain things.
Like I tell my kids, like, you have the right to say what you want, but there's consequences. If you say that, or if you do this is what's going to happen. So think about what you're going to say or
So why do they say we have in the First Amendment, I'm still trying to figure out, why do we have a right to free speech? But I was always taught, again, I'm going to say what I was taught, you have a right to free speech as long as it's not infringing on the rights of others.
But that's subjective.
It is subjective. And I agree with you on the culture in which we are a part of is racist, and it has all kind of continuations in it. I'm just trying, before we get to this, all these college campuses who really practice free, they're supposed to be anyway, practicing free speech, I need to understand, what is free speech? I heard you. Be able to say whatever you want to say. I disagree. Doesn't mean I'm right, but I disagree. What makes free speech free?
I think it's complicated because we don't live in a system where any right is like straightforward, because we live in a culture where there has been historical sexism, racism, homophobia, all of these things that doesn't allow for that right to be fully executed. But the very basis of the rights and what was set for Americans, I think those exist, but then I think it makes it complicated because we have racism. So then now I, as a Black person, my freedom of speech, right, is going to look different, right, and the consequences than a white person using their freedom of speech. Not because of the right, because of the culture that exists in that country, right? It's going to look different. And I also believe it's subjective, right? I think it depends, because who you would call a terrorist, I wouldn't. Like several times people call Hamas a terrorist. I'm being honest, I would not label them a terrorist, right? That's just your opinion. Some people would label Black folks who was enslaved, who went out and was revolting against enslavement, and who went and killed white people, right? They would consider them to be terrorists. There are people who will be labeled terrorists today. They label Black Panther movement people terrorists. They label Angela, like all of them people, terrorists. I would never consider them terrorists, right? Based on my definition. So I think it's very subjective, right? And I also think it's based on people's perspectives, viewpoints, and me. I just say people can say what they want, but there's also consequences, but that consequences is based on the culture.
Okay, I hear you. So now, across the country, and Temple is on the way, some of the most elite universities, presidents have set before Congress. One tried to be politically correct, the last one, and say what she thought they wanted to hear, and it caused a true revolt. What is going on across this country right now with this whole free speech? And then I guess I can hear what you have to say on that now. I'm sorry I cut you off earlier.
No, well, one, what seemed to have started on Columbia University's campus just a few days ago with the encampment, with the students who were leading it. One of the young students who was suspended, kicked out of dorms, kicked out of classes, kicked off the food plan, was the daughter of Congresswoman Ilhan Omar. And while there was already a movement coming, it kind of fast-tracked everything that campuses all across this country, including UD here in Delaware, people are walking out of classes, people are setting up encampments to call for their universities, their endowment funds to divest from Israel. Why? Because there is a genocide going on there. And they're using the money, their tuition dollars, that back in the day used to be, $5,000 to go to college. It's now $100,000 to go to college for 1 year. They're using that money to invest in other countries. And these students are saying, we don't want our money to go to that anymore. And the fact that they're using police to come in like paratroopers, like we saw down in Texas, while the governor sits there and says, you should have free speech when it came to white supremacists speaking out on campus. And again, they can speak out, but don't change the system now that people are speaking out against something that you don't agree with.
Not the right, it's the culture.
I saw it while he was talking. I did see that. Depending on the culture, that's what will be acceptable, what won't be acceptable. So I kind of buy that a little bit, but it does not answer the question of the free speech, because the free speech means I can say what I want to say, but based on the culture.
One, it's not against Jewish people. The vast majority of these organizers are Jewish American. Right? These are practicing Jewish American students who are leading this fight. And they are partnering with Black organizers, with organizers who are Palestinian, right? All across the board. And I think that's the narrative that they want to silence, right? At any time that the police get involved, right, with protesters, it usually turns out bad, except for January 6th, because it was, their co-workers. It was their co-workers.
Okay.
But again, this is like what we keep seeing in America, and it's not even every 4 years. We're seeing this every single year. And one, I do not believe the police should be interacting with these kids.
I agree.
And that's where I said their rights aren't being upheld, right? Two, these universities need to start listening to their students, because if they have a mass exit, right, these students start switching from some of these major universities, all that prestige goes away. All that prestige goes away. Now, these universities also don't care about minorities. Why? They've gotten rid of affirmative action. They've gotten rid of, especially in Florida, you can't be in a Divine Nine. You can't have minority groups like BSUs and stuff like Black student unions and stuff like that. They gotten rid of that. And now these students are speaking out. Now they're being arrested. They're being suspended. They're being expelled. This is what we're dealing with in America, and it's not right.
Yeah. It's
not right at all.
Well, I need to know, for those of you who watch us every week, what does it mean in the Constitution when it says that we Americans have free speech, freedom of speech? Because it seems like, and I'm kind of like agreeing a teeny bit with our sister right now, then that the culture dictates what you can and cannot say. And you should not silence a person because if the culture says you should not say that, you don't say it. I understand that now, but I am concerned that now all of a sudden institutions in which I committed my life to, because I was a college administrator for 15 years before I became a pastor, I'm very big on freedom of the press. I'm very big on freedom of speech. But we were framed to understand that your rights end when they begin to infringe on the rights of others. Whenever there's hate speech, whenever you are demoralizing someone, that is not free and it's not protected. But all other speech supposed to be protected. And right now, I think with what's going on in Gaza, it is horrible. Last week we opened up our show and we shared with you what is going on over there. How right now the president for Israel is just doing stuff.
Netanyahu.
Yeah, I never say his name right, so I did not to say it. But he's just not doing right, and he needs to be stopped. I understand the people who are calling for Congress, calling for the Senate, calling for the President of the United States to put a cease to this, and they just sent a huge packet over to them.
And who voted for it from our Congress?
Well, I guess we didn't get our word yet, so I guess everybody voted.
I know. Lisa Blunt Rochester signed on to it. All three of them signed on to keep giving Israel money.
Yeah, I think at some point we gotta change the culture of Delaware, and we will change
culture. It is always culture.
Listen, we'll be right back.
Join us for an evening of unity and support. Come out to the Congo Legacy Center on Thursday, May 2nd from 6 to 8 p.m. and rally behind Shané Dorsey Walker, candidate for Lieutenant Governor. This fundraiser, hosted by family and friends of Shané Dorsey Walker, promises an inspiring evening as we rise to unify. Tickets are $100. Please don't miss this opportunity to show your support and be a part of the movement. See you there.
Tune in at 8 a.m. every Sunday for our worship services. Join us at 9 a.m. on YouTube and Facebook Live by typing E Zion Fair Baptist Church. We are Wilmington's most exciting church.
And we're back. Well, Shané, what's going on with your scoop? And I hope it's something juicy.
Yeah, so I'm going to give an update on the water billing that's happened, three pieces of water legislation. So all three of them failed, right? We did not have enough votes. Just before this, you said I had lost votes in a lot of the pieces of legislation because they were once in committee and they passed out of committee. And the majority of the people who passed it out of the committee did not vote for this legislation anymore. Right, so a lot of things happened between the committee meeting and going into city council meeting that night for voting. One, anytime I present a piece of legislation, the mayor administration, because they love me so much, they send memos out to every single city council people about how terrible my legislation is. This doom and gloom narrative of she is going to bankrupt the city with her legislation, like this whole false narrative and misinformation about my piece of legislation that they put out in a memo to all of the city council people. They basically told city council, if you pass any of these legislations, you are irresponsible and you should not do it. That's the narrative.
You mean the same city council that's cool with giving millions of dollars away in tax rebates, raising the prices on the actual people who live here, but don't want to give handout to the people who actually live here. But Bachini Pollen, who lives in a different state, right? Rob lives in a different state. But as long as they get their $600 little, they're for sale. They'll sell their morals, their ethics, their souls for $600 and a birthday party and a free drink.
What kind of drink? That may be about $600.
That's cool.
Wow.
That's not bankrupting the city. The fact that they don't hold them accountable for having hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of water bills is cool.
That blew my mind last week. But you know about that?
The group been talking about it.
Oh my Lord.
So in that, outside of the memo, another big thing that happened, I think that swayed a lot of people to not vote for the legislation who was initially in support of it. All of a sudden, Tuesday before that Thursday vote, there's a meeting. This emergency meeting. And so I get on the call and they're like, I didn't even know what it was about. They were like, hey, you should jump on. I'm like, okay. Jump on, and they're talking about water. So the administration announces that they're going to put into effect immediately two policies. right? So policy 1 was in relation to my shutoff legislation that instead of doing 30-day shutoff, so they send out these 96-hour notices that, hey, in 96 hours, your water is going to get shut off. So they send out these notices. They're saying instead of doing it in 30 days, they're going to now wait till 6 months to send out that notice that you're going to get a shut off. So in between that time, there's going to be a 30-day, 60-day, 90 days. It's going to every 30 days, that person will get a notice to say, you are behind, you are behind. And then when it gets to the 6 months, that's when the 96-hour shut off will be sent to that particular family. In my opinion, that was a way to throw off people from voting for my shutoff legislation. So my legislation proposed that people who are elders, have disability, or children under the age of 5, that their water is not shut off as a collection practice, right? So a lot of people are also saying and said that I'm trying to get people out of paying their bill. Nowhere in the legislation does it state that the person is no longer responsible. I am just saying, a collection practice that is inhumane should not be used. We should be innovative. We can look at what other cities are doing to figure out how do we work with people who cannot afford their water and getting them to pay. What do we do?
Can I just add something? Because you said it last week. I heard what you just said. You said that they are feeling that you just are trying to find a way to keep people from paying their bills. So what do you say about all those water bills that we saw last week where they didn't pay?
I'm going to get more.
And I just don't understand.
I'm going to get more, and I'm going to start
Why
posting
does
them
the
all
rich
up
always
around.
get an opportunity to do?
Well, because they hire people in the city, and sometimes those people don't even live in the city, but we get some city wages, even though we keep losing jobs. We have over 2 million square feet of empty office space in the city of Wilmington, but we keep building here, right? Right, that's good, right? They're building here, so why do they have to pay their bills?
Right. So we don't treat.
Do I not build my family here? Do you not build your family here? Do you not own multiple businesses?
Yeah.
Do you not have a community space?
Yes.
But you got to pay your bills.
Yeah, I
Better pay it
mine.
on time.
Yeah.
So I got to pay my
On
bills.
time.
Or I get a penalty.
Yeah, they're gonna shut me off. They waiting to shut
They
me
said,
off.
"Oh, she $1 off."
Off.
They shutting me off.
But this is their logic, right? And this is what gets under my skin. Their logic is so flawed. If they were applying it across the board, if businesses in residentials could both be shut off, I would still probably have some issue, but maybe not as much.
Like Delmarva do, they shut everybody off.
Right.
Yeah.
The fact that the Hotel DuPont,
Oh yeah.
all of them should lose their water right now under how they work, right? They owe more than what, the 5,000 threshold?
Yep. Way more.
Oh yeah.
Way more.
We had a screen last week.
Over the 5,000
Last show.
threshold, their water should be shut off, but it hasn't been. So if you're rich in this city, right, and you live in Bacini Collins building, that the mayor played as the Mike Pazicki was a agent for a private business to step in to make sure that BBG got that, just like what's going on 37th Street with the Capano property. He is a agent for businesses and developers. He's not holding them accountable. They are stealing money and resources from the city of Wilmington, and then you have people like Maria Cabrera who want to sit there. We got the cheapest water.
Tell that,
Tell
that to the family who's getting shut off. And there was one resident who came and talked about how she allowed her neighbor to use her water hose to have water because her water got shut off. I want Maria Cabrera to go to that family and tell them, but we got the cheapest water in the region. I want her to go tell that family that who has shut off, who is living secretly, trying to figure things out. And then, if you have kids, CPS is going to get involved if you find a DFS, like so many things just by not having water. But we want to cut people's water off. But that is inhumane.
It is so clear for those of you who are watching that the rich can do what they want to do. They can get away with what they want to get away with. The poor is constantly suffering. Now, I am not an advocate of giving anything away free, but I am an advocate if it's not deserved, because there are some people who can't help themselves. I'm tired of hearing that story too. I'm tired of hearing that you just don't want people to pay. We're going to go bankrupt. Not if you get those businesses with all of those water bills we showed y'all last week. If we get them to pay, it'll take care of the whole East Side water bill. You can tell the whole East Side, no water bill for this month.
Yep.
If we just get those businesses to pay their share. This is what Bernie Sanders is trying to say about the rich, when he's constantly saying that there is no reason for us to say we can't do for the poor when we're allowing the rich to continue to do whatever they want to do.
Yep.
This is unfair.
So with the shutoffs, going from 30 days to 6 months with the policy, a shutoff is a shutoff,
Okay.
right? If you shut me off at 30 days or 6 months, if I couldn't pay, at 30 days, I couldn't pay at 60 days, I couldn't pay at 90 days, and I get to the 6 month and you all of a sudden gonna shut me up. What made you think if I didn't pay in those 6 months? The majority of us are not, just saying, because there's always a small group who are taking advantage of the system. The majority of us are working. The majority of us are trying. The majority of us are trying to make it. You can't even rob Peter to pay Paul because Peter broke. Like, it's not even, like, it's like life is like life in. Like, it's not even that anymore. People are just truly just struggling. And then what makes it unfortunate, because I'm going to talk about the second policy in a second, is that if we had an affordable water bill system, we will have less people having shutoffs. We will have less foreclosures and less delinquency, right? Just by establishing a water affordable system in our program, right? So the other piece of legislation, this got the most votes though. I had 5 people, I just needed 2 more. And I'm gonna try to see if I can bring it back in some way. But you can't bring back the same legislation. So I gotta kind of, tweak it a little bit. But
Get a new counseling too.
Yes, I was able to have at least five people say yes to that piece of legislation, but I did not have enough to hire an outside consultant to come in to look at our system and say, this is what would work. In the city of Philadelphia, they have that. And there's an automatic enrollment process. You don't have to call to enroll. What they do is they check the state system to see who's on public assistance, who's get disability a check. And then with the date of birth is easy. You to fill out and to start your water company, they ask for all your information, ask for your date of birth, your social, your address, all of that. You can easily run a system of date of birth and it automatically put seniors on there.
And for the person who just said something, I heard you with my spiritual tone that you always want to give something away free. You always want to give something away free.
Not free.
You always want to give it, and you always, and don't you dare bring up the city of Philadelphia because their budget is 12 times our size. But think about this. If you just get those folks who owe all of that money right now to pay their bill, you can do it. Stop whitewashing. Stop playing the game. I'm gonna cut you off 3 times. I'm sorry.
No, you good.
But stop it. Stop it. Stop saying that. Don't bring up Philadelphia. We won't. But we can do it on a smaller scale, exact same system.
Yeah.
Exact same system, smaller scale. Especially if you get everybody to pay their fair share.
Yep, and then the third piece of legislation was about foreclosure. So I go into this Tuesday meeting, the second policy, they say, basically, they're going to adopt everything in the piece of legislation, but it's going to be a policy. So there's a difference between policy and there's a difference between something becoming law, right? Policies from administration to administration, the administration decides what the policy is. As a one-man or one-woman show, they decide what the policies are going to be with their departments. They help make that decision, right? It goes through an admin board, but the admin board is all people appointed by the mayor administration, right? So he has a lot, or he or she or whoever is the mayor has a lot of control over policy on the executive branch, on the administration side, right? So with that is that policy changes, right? When you make it a legislation or law, it's harder for the next administration to then say, you know what, we're going to go back to foreclosing our homeowners for water debt. Right. So that was the argument there. So it was like I guess it's like a win-loss, win-lose thing because they were able to adopt it as a policy, but city council didn't believe in making it a more permanent thing via legislation. The other argument they gave me in the memo, because remember that I get memos. In the memo, they said what Councilmember Darby is trying to do with the foreclosures is illegal.
Illegal?
Yeah, they told me it's against state code. So I read the state code. It's nothing that guarantees or requires any city to collect water debt. It means to put to foreclose or to put a lien on someone else for a water debt. There's no you weren't supposed
to read it. Number one, see some of these people who are on city council right now, they're just voting off of he say she say.
Yes, they just listen to the mayor.
So you made a mistake. You had no business reading it. It's there. You just probably can't read because you're in the temple.
But then what makes it crazy is that in their logic, they say a policy can trump law.
Who said that?
That's their argument.
No, I agree.
Like
the mayor's policy not to enforce residency can trump the actual law that y'all pass. The fact that this administration has openly talked about breaking the law multiple times,
they breaking law,
and no one wants to do anything about it is sad. You have you could have 7 members of council who stand up and say, "Wait, yes, we agree with you, Mr. Mayor, but you can't break the laws that are already in place." Mm-hmm. We're not saying we don't like you. We're just saying, can you please follow the laws? And if you want to change
they won't get a party.
You have a pact.
They can't do that. They won't have a party. Did you say they get parties?
Yeah, they get parties.
They get $600.
They get birthday parties.
So what do you think they will give up that?
Oh yeah,
they will give up that. They probably get little apartments and houses and cars. I don't know what I'm talking about.
Yeah. So with that piece of legislation, for me, it was like y'all lied in the memo because there's no way you could create a policy.
Is this memo public?
I can make it public. They sent it to me. I can do whatever I want with any email sent to me.
Well, that's true.
So I can send the memo. I had sent the memo already to people for them to read it because I was like, I sent it to my attorney friends, and I'm like, am I reading this right? Because I know I'm not no attorney, but I can read and I can comprehend. I can read. I can read a little bit, right? So for me, it was like, so what y'all said in that memo isn't even true because there's no way that I can create any policy that trumps state law.
Yeah, but you know what? You know what's more true than what you're saying? Nobody's going to fight it, and that's why they keep doing it.
They're not. They never fight it.
Why don't you bring it to the floor?
Bring what to the floor?
Just the information. Have a nice poster of both what the memo said and what the actual law says, and how that law.
I don't think you can do that at city council.
Yeah, you can. You can do a resolution honoring an attorney, and they could talk about what they want to talk about during that time. They let everyone else come up there and talk about what they want to talk about because they really don't honor people anymore. It's just. Who wants one gets one. They hand them out like candy. So why not?
No, good point.
But you know what we need in the city of Wilmington, then we're going to move on. We really need...
a new mayor?
Well, we will get a new mayor. We will get a new mayor. We don't know who that new
January
mayor will be.
5th, right? They get sworn in?
But what we do need is we need some lawyers. Because that's the only way we can change some of this stuff. We need lawyers. And that's why the rich can do what they want to do because they're not going to cross them because they'll throw a lawyer on them and put a lawsuit against the city. Whereas the mayor knows that. He's very smart. He's not
an attorney. He is a
slow.
lawyer.
Yeah. University of Delaware. Hey. Don't hate.
Yeah. And one last thing about the water thing that happened at that meeting, I got to hit on this. So in the opening, our president, Ernest Congo, he was sitting there and he was doing his introduction. And he revealed to us that Councilmember Chris Johnson threatened that he would censor him if he allowed the community to get too much out of control at that meeting. Make it make sense. So our president nicely put him in his place and said, you're going to have to do what you want to do because I am for the people protecting their freedom of speech, their First Amendment right.
I was
right?
just about to make it.
Right? So that goes back to it's subjective because some city council people believe that certain community people don't have the freedom of speech up there, but others do. That's why it's subjective in regards to who has this right and what this right looks like.
They be mad when certain people talk.
They were going to censor him.
This is crazy, and that's
won't censor the mayor.
Yeah,
won't censor council people who are stealing money and putting it into their accounts. But they're willing to censor a council person for allowing people to have their freedom of speech.
Yeah, I think that because this is November really election is going to be September. I think that we really need to take serious and invite as many people to run for city council to really make a difference because this is crazy. I mean, I got out of politics. I mentored Justin for a while, and then it just got too crazy for me. I couldn't deal with the politics of any of it. But now you telling me you got council people who are just all in.
It's the nerve that Chris Johnson thinks that he's big enough to tell a staff person, call Trippy or President Congo for this conversation. Call President Congo and tell him I'm going to censor him if he don't do the right thing. I want you to call him now. And then she went back, our staff went and said, yeah, I told him. And he said, okay. Like he had the balls enough to do that.
Can you say that on TV?
Yes, I did.
Oh, say galls.
Galls.
Okay, that's better. All right. Look, we're way over time on this. Yes. We got to come back with Coby's Corner. I'm floored. I'm sorry. For those of you who are watching, I'm just floored because I just don't believe. They're just up here making these things up. You really need to go figure it out for yourself and figure out if this is true. We'll be right back.
Hello, I'm Marcus Henry, and I'm running for Newcastle County Executive. I spent over 20 years working in state and local government, trying to bring the good programs and services you deserve here in Newcastle County. Please support my campaign. Please look us up at marcushenryde.com for further information. I look forward to meeting you all over the next year, and I look forward to your support. Thank you.
And we're back. Our co-host had to run off after all that she just did and dropped on us. I'm kind of floored right now, so I'm just going to turn right over to Brother Coby for Coby Corner. Hope you ain't got no more stuff to mess up my psychological formation.
So one, I wanted to talk about something here on a local level. We were talking about utilities and everything, and you brought up Delmarva. There was a lawsuit against a large resident homeowner group called Weldon Farms, who sued Delmarva for the increases of utility rates, right? The lawsuit has now been settled. And a few things that I really want to highlight in that. One, Delmarva will be issuing a rebate for overcharging people going back on your bill from July of 2023 up until now. Going forward, starting next month, which is May, your rate should be lower. They have not rolled out when they're going to do the rebates. I know some people have already got small checks back, but there's going to be some more that are coming in the coming months. Now, the lower rates, you're going to see a decrease. The first decrease is going to only be a very small decrease by 1.85%, but then you're going to see an even greater decrease after that, based on the average 811 kilowatts per month that you use.
Now, is that for both business and commercial, or just, commercial and residential?
That's for residential customers.
Okay.
Yep.
All right.
So on average, you'll see about $2.62 come down from that first decrease, but there is additional money that is coming. Now, what I hope they don't do is give us a credit, right? Give me my cash refund. And then I'll decide if I want to pay the electric bill. But again, for the overpayment, it will begin. It starts from July 15th of 2023 and goes until when they finally settled this agreement here. So that is going to be huge. It's going to help a lot of people, and again, bring down our rates a little bit more. Next, I want to talk about a Supreme Court case that was heard. It was 2.5 hours long. It was Grants Pass. And what this does is Grants Pass is a city in Oregon. They passed a law criminalizing camping on public property is cruel and unusual and prohibited by, well, I'll say this, being homeless is prohibited. They're saying it's prohibited by the 8th Amendment, which is not true, right? We've had cases in the past that have ruled that you cannot demonize someone or criminalize someone for a status, but only for an action. And what does that mean? The action of stealing, the action of buying drugs is illegal. The status of being a drug addict is not illegal. The status of being homeless cannot be illegal. And that's what they were debating in this Grants Pass versus Johnson case, which has national implications on homelessness policy. It has implementations on Wilmington, Delaware, where we know that our mayor has used his police department to issue no contact warrant contact orders with individuals experiencing homelessness only for downtown. So he don't want them out the city. He just don't want them downtown, where all the nice new buildings are. Again, Grants Pass is trying to run homeless people out of their town, out in Oregon. and the main issue, and we've seen this come up multiple times. This started all the way back in 2018, and it's finally getting to the Supreme Court. It was heard on Monday, the 22nd. But in 1962, the case of Robinson versus California found that it was unconstitutional for a state to punish someone for being a drug addict, which is a status rather than an act, like committing a crime. While it can be illegal to do these things, like I was saying, buying drugs and stuff like that, and possessing drugs, the simple status of being an addict or homeless is not a crime. This case is arguing that homelessness should be made illegal, right? Which is interesting because we do not want to invest in affordable housing. We do not want to invest in more housing. Wilmington has seen the largest decrease of public housing in the entire nation. You look at every city that we have in this nation, Wilmington is at the top. That is insane that out of the thousands and thousands of cities, we have over 10,000 cities across this world, right? That Wilmington is leading one of the largest countries in the world in decrease in public housing.
That's crazy.
That's insane.
Yeah.
And that's what I don't want my city known for. But it seems as though this administration and certain members on council do not care. Next, I'm going to also talk about another potential rebate opportunity for people. The Biden-Harris administration announced earlier this week that the U.S. Department of Transportation is issuing a final rule that requires airlines to promptly provide passengers with automatic cash refunds when owed. Yes. Why is that huge? Because when it's credited back to your card, you may not see that money for a few days. So if your flight is canceled, right, and you're in a city that you're not, it's not your home city you're leaving from, you may be stranded there and you may need that money to go get a hotel room right away, or somewhere to stay, or get food or whatsoever. This all comes after we saw the huge collapse a few years ago where all the airlines canceled. Over, I think it was like 1,000 flights got canceled across multiple major airlines. This is a huge ruling.
Yeah, I like that. And in fact, it changed the way I even fly, because I used to fly in the afternoons. Now I fly first thing in the morning so I can at least get out of the city, with other flights. But I love this. I mean, it was a lot of parts to that. I mean, you're talking about just giving you a cash refund, but it also talks about some other things that you get as well. So I think this is a great...
It rules that for passengers, they're entitled to a refund for canceled or significantly changed flights. Right. Passenger will be entitled to a refund for their flight that is canceled or significantly changed, and they do not accept alternative transportation or travel credits offered. For the first time, this rule defines significant changes to a flight, which means departure or arrivals times that are more than 3 hours domestically or 6 hours internationally, departures and arrivals from a different airport than originally planned, increases in the number of connections, or the passengers are downgraded to a lower class service, or connections in different airports or flights on different planes that are less accessible and accommodating to the person with a disability. Next is significant delays in baggage returns. Passengers who file a mishandled baggage report will be entitled to a refund of their checked bag fee if it's not delivered within 12 hours of their domestic flight arriving at the gate, or 15 to 30 hours for international flight, depending where you're going and the length of the flight. Extra services not provided. If a passenger will be entitled to a refund for the fee they paid for an extra service, such as Wi-Fi, seat selection, or in-flight entertainment, if the airline fails to provide that to individuals. They have been taking advantage of people for a very long time. And again, I am glad to see that they are finally doing something. This is going to be huge. One, the final rule also improves the passenger's experience when requiring a refund. So airlines must automatically issue refunds without passengers having to explicitly request them or jump through hoops. Prompt, airline and ticket agents must issue refunds within 7 business days, or refund being due for credit card purchases in 20 calendar days of the payment method. cash or original form of payment. Airline and ticket agents must provide refunds in cash or whatever original payment method the individual used to make the purchase, such as a credit card, airline miles. Airlines may not substitute vouchers, travel credits, or other forms of compensation unless the passenger affirmatively chooses to accept alternative compensation. And the full amount, I think that's very clear. It must be the full amount, no half, no percentage. It must be the full amount of whatever that person paid. But that's all I have for today that I just wanted to talk about real quick.
Well, I'll do what. Are there any updates at all with the?
So there's some bills that are changing. There was the free food for all bill, which is now going to be delayed until next year because the state is saying it has no money. But in the interim, Shané Darby Walker put up a bill to eliminate punishment for lunchroom debt. So students would still be able to go to their proms and stuff like that, proms, homecomings, and participate in sports activities for even if they have school lunchroom debt. Also, there's another bill that's coming up that's going to phase in anyone who qualifies right now for reduced lunch will be eligible for free lunch. Their parents will no longer have to pay for this first year. It is a compromise, but again, this work is not going to stop. We're still going to push this. We're still building coalition and building broad support on getting that universal breakfast and lunch for the state of Delaware.
All right.
The Homeless Bill of Rights is being amended. There's a lot of false narratives being put out by Bacini Pollen, by the mayor of Wilmington, that this is going to legalize homelessness. And like I just said, homelessness is not illegal. But what this bill does say is that they now have a place to go if your rights are infringed to file a complaint, to start an investigation, and that's with the Delaware Civil Rights and Human Rights Commission. But the mayor of Wilmington does not want that. And his best buddies and his bosses, Bacini Pollen, do not want it as well.
Wow.
And I'm very disappointed that we had a state rep who represents the city of Wilmington, who was chairing that committee, skipped over almost 50 people who had properly signed up to give public comment, and she allowed one of her campaign donors, Bacini Pollen, Mike Hare, their executive VP, to give public comment and then cut off public comment for everyone else and then force the sponsor to change the bill. That is corrupt. That person should be ashamed of themselves. And I'm hearing that person is interested in running in statewide office in 2026 to be our next attorney general. Well, guess what? That person should not be in that office if they have no ethics whatsoever.
We've had a very interesting show today, and I'm just out of it. I mean, it's just too much. It's just dirty. It's just dirty. You know, with all that is going on, people are just corrupt. They do what they want to do. They prey, P-R-E-Y, on black and brown people. It's just sad. But at some point, change will have to come. I want to remind everyone, well, before I let you go, Coby, just give me a one-word answer. Will the Supreme Court allow Trump to have absolute immunity? Yes or no?
No. I think they're going to come back with a small window.
All right, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to say yes, but they're going to send it down to the lower courts to delay it, so there'll be no trial. So I say those things so that when we come back, we can see who's right. So but I'm agreeing with you on the no, though, because they know you never know who's going to be behind Trump, and that becomes important. The next question I wanted to ask you is, do you think that based on what you've heard so far with the case that Trump is dealing with in New York, do you think he's going to be found guilty?
Yes.
Okay, you do believe that? Okay, I have not formed my opinion yet. I'm going to wait until I hear a little bit more, but for right now, they laid the case out pretty good. I just want to remind everybody that on Friday night, Shané Darby Walker will be having Sharing with Sherry at the Congo Legacy facility. I hope that you will join her. It's $100 per person, and this is an opportunity for you to show your support, your love, your caring for her. She runs up and down the state trying to be an ambassador for all, not just one clique, but she's really very, very supportive. You've heard me talk a whole lot about my support for her because I watch the bills that she try to push forward. I watch how she try to interact and how she don't get in the fray of the mess. And I think that's important, even though some of her bills have not been brought to the floor in the Senate side. We're going to be dealing with that a little bit later. But I am very impressed with her. And those of you who saw me on my show last week, I made sure my wife and I got our tickets, and we hoping and trusting that another guest will come and be a surprise guest for us. But please join her May 2nd at I forgot the exact time, it's not at the top of my head, but I do know it's May 2nd at the Congo Legacy Center, which is this coming Friday. And Coby, is there anything else on your
That's all I have.
That's all you have?
That's all I have.
Well, you done gave us enough. See ya.
Take care, y'all.